Welcome to my channel. Have you ever felt that you learn English every day, but when it's time to speak, nothing comes out? What if I told you the problem is not your English, it's your method? Stay with me until the end, because today I will show you how your normal daily life can turn you into a confident English speaker step by step, starting from today. Chapter 1. Your life is already full of English. Maybe for a long time you believed that English lives only inside books, classrooms, grammar lessons, and study tables. Maybe you felt that real English learning begins only when you open a notebook, watch a lesson, or sit down with full concentration and tell yourself, now I will study. And because of that, your mind may have built a quiet wall between your life and your English. On one side was your real day, your bed, your shoes, your breakfast, your phone, your street, your work, your school, your small daily moments. On the other side was English, far away, serious, difficult, and waiting for a perfect time. This is how many learners feel. So if you have ever felt this way, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not lazy, you are not weak, you are not behind. You simply learn to see English as something separate from your life. But the beautiful truth, and maybe the most freeing truth you will hear today, is that your life is already full of English. Not later, not after a big course, not after perfect grammar, right now. In the room where you sit, in the things you touch, in the actions you do every single day without even thinking. Look around you for a moment in the most natural way. There is a bed, or a chair, or a table. Maybe there is a door near you. Maybe your phone is in your hand. Maybe there is a glass of water, a window, a fan, a bag, a book, a cup, a shirt, a pair of shoes on the floor. These are not small things. These are not useless things. These are your first English teachers. That may sound surprising at first, because many people think learning English must start with big rules and difficult words. But that is not how confidence really grows. Confidence grows when your mind starts connecting English to real life. When you see a door and no door. When you pick up your phone and think phone. When you drink water and think water. When you wear your shoes and think shoes. It feels simple, but simple is powerful. In fact, simple is often where real progress begins. A few real words that belong to your life are more powerful than 100 words you never use. This is where something very important changes inside you. Before, your room was just your room. Now it can become your first English classroom. Before, your morning was just your routine. Now it can become daily practice. Before, your phone was only your phone. Now it can become an English reminder in your hand. This is not about making your life complicated. It is about seeing clearly for the first time. English is not hiding from you. It is sitting beside you. It is in the ordinary. It is in the daily. It is in the life you already live. And when you start to understand this, something heavy begins to leave your shoulders. You stop feeling like you always need special time, special books, special energy, or special motivation just to begin. You realize that the beginning is already here. Think about your morning. You wake up, you open your eyes, you get out of bed, you fold your blanket maybe, you walk to the bathroom, you wash your face, you brush your teeth, you wear your clothes, you look in the mirror, you make tea or breakfast, you hold a cup, you check your phone, you open the door, you step outside. All of this is English practice waiting quietly for you. You do not need to turn it into a hard lesson. You do not need to speak like a news reporter. You do not need to build long, perfect sentences. Even noticing the English inside these moments begins to train your brain in a new way. Bed, blanket, bathroom, brush, face, shirt, tea, cup, phone, door, street. These are not random words anymore. These are your words, because they belong to your real life. That changes everything. Many learners make one common mistake. They believe, I need advanced grammar before I can use English in daily life. That belief stops so many people before they even begin. They wait and wait. They think first I need all tenses, then I need perfect sentence structure, then I need more vocabulary, then I need confidence, then maybe one day I will use English in real life. But real growth usually happens in the opposite direction. You begin using what you already know, even if it is small. Then your confidence grows. Then your mind becomes faster. Then grammar starts making more sense because it connects to life. English becomes stronger not only because you studied it, but because you lived with it. That is why you do not need advanced English to start. You need a real moment. You need one object, one action, one thought. That is enough to open the door. So let me give you a new way to see yourself. You are not an empty learner waiting to be filled. You are already surrounded by useful material. You are already carrying a full day of possible practice. You already have a room, a routine, objects, actions, feelings, habits, and small repeated moments. That means you already have a foundation. This matters deeply because many people lose motivation when they think they are starting from nothing. But you are not starting from nothing. You are starting from your own life, and that is the strongest place to start. When learning becomes personal, it becomes real. When it becomes real, it becomes memorable. And when it becomes memorable, it begins to stay. Even your feelings can become English practice. If you are tired, that is English. If you are happy, that is English. If you are hungry, busy, cold, relaxed, worried, excited, sleepy, that is English too. Your actions are English. Your environment is English. Your routine is English. Your day is full of chances that most people ignore because they are looking too far away. They are searching for a perfect system while simple moments are quietly waiting in front of them. But now you are starting to see differently. Now you can feel the hidden opportunity inside your normal life. This is where a learner begins to become more awake, more connected, more confident. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because the path is finally visible. And once this truth enters your mind, something beautiful begins to happen. English stops feeling like a stranger. It starts feeling closer, warmer, friendlier, less like a test and more like a companion walking beside you through the day. You begin to understand that progress is not only made in big dramatic moments. Sometimes progress begins when you look around and quietly know 5 things in English. Sometimes it begins when you realize that your breakfast, your clothes, your room, your street, and your phone are not just part of your day. They are part of your learning. That is not a small realization. That is a powerful one. Because from this moment, you can never fully say again that you have no chance to practice. Your life is giving you chances all the time. So carry this truth with you now. You do not need to wait for the perfect lesson to begin growing. You do not need difficult grammar before English can enter your daily life. You do not need a giant vocabulary list before simple words become meaningful. You already have enough around you to begin. And that should give you relief, but also hope. Because if English is already hidden inside your normal day, then improvement is closer than you thought. Much closer. And once you begin seeing English around you, the next beautiful step is learning how to connect it not just to objects around you, but to the routine you live every single day. That is where this journey starts becoming even more personal, more natural, and more powerful. Chapter 2. Turn your daily routine into English practice. Every day of your life already has a shape. It moves in a quiet pattern that you follow without thinking. You wake up, you get out of bed, you wash your face, you eat something, you move through your day, you return, you rest, and then you sleep again. This rhythm is not random, it is stable, it repeats. And that is exactly why it is powerful. Because anything that repeats can become a habit, and anything that becomes a habit can become progress without stress. This is where something very important begins to change inside you. You stop seeing English as something you must add to your life like a heavy extra task. Instead, you begin to place English inside the life you are already living. You do not need a new schedule. You do not need extra time. You simply need a new way of using the moments that already belong to you. Think about how your day begins. The moment your eyes open, your mind is already active. You are already doing something real. You are not waiting for a lesson to start your life. You are already in motion. This is where English can enter naturally. Not in a complicated way, not in long, difficult sentences, but in small, clear, simple expressions that match exactly what you are doing. When you wake up, a simple thought like, I wake up is enough. When you stand, I stand. When you go to the bathroom, I go to the bathroom. When you brush your teeth, I brush my teeth. These are not just sentences, they are bridges. They connect your actions to your language. And once that connection begins, your brain starts learning in a way that feels natural instead of forced. At first, it may feel very small, almost too small. You might think, this is too easy to matter. But that is where many learners misunderstand the process. Fluency does not begin with big, complex sentences. It begins with clear, simple ones that repeat again and again in real life. When something repeats, your brain stops treating it as new information and starts treating it as familiar. And when something feels familiar, it becomes easier to use without fear. This is how confidence quietly grows, not from pressure, but from repetition inside real moments. Not from perfection, but from connection. Your kitchen can become one of your strongest learning spaces without you even changing anything. When you make tea, you already know what you are doing. You boil water, you take a cup, you add tea, you pour water, you wait, you drink. These are actions you understand deeply because you live them. Now imagine those same actions slowly connecting with English. I make tea, I take a cup, I pour water, I drink tea. Nothing extra, nothing complicated. Just your life, seen in a new way. And when you repeat this daily, something begins to shift. English stops feeling like a stranger. It starts feeling like a quiet voice that follows your actions. The same thing happens when you step outside. You walk, you see people, you hear sounds, you move through streets, you wait, you go somewhere, you return. All of these are simple human experiences. But now they can carry language with them. I walk, I see people. The street is busy, I go to work, I come back home. These are not perfect sentences. They do not need to be. They are alive. They belong to your real world. And that makes them powerful. Because your brain learns faster when language is connected to real experience instead of abstract study. There is a quiet moment in this process where you start to feel something new, a small sense of control. Before, English may have felt like something outside your reach, something you had to chase, something that required special effort. But now, you begin to see that you can use English at any moment of your day. Not later, not after preparation, now. And that feeling of control is important. Because when you feel in control, you stop waiting. You start acting. And when you start acting, progress becomes real. Many learners fall into a common trap. They try to memorize difficult words that have no connection to their daily life. They fill their mind with vocabulary that they never use. And after some time, those words disappear. This creates frustration. It makes them feel like they are not improving. But the problem is not their ability. The problem is the method. Words that are not used in real life are easy to forget. Words that live inside your routine are much harder to lose. When you say, I eat, I drink, I go, I wear, I open, I close. Again and again in real situations, those words begin to stay. They become part of your natural thinking. This is where a powerful shift begins. You are no longer a learner who collects English. You are someone who uses English. That is a completely different identity. One feels heavy and slow. The other feels active and alive. When you start using English through your routine, even in very small ways, you begin to build momentum. And momentum is what carries you forward when motivation becomes weak. Because there will be days when you do not feel excited. There will be moments when you feel tired. But your routine will still be there. And inside that routine, your English will still be waiting for you. As your day continues, you will notice something interesting. The same actions happen again and again. Eating, walking, sitting, working, resting. And every time they happen, you get another chance to connect them with English. This repetition is not boring. It is actually the secret. Because fluency is not built by doing something once. It is built by doing simple things many times until they feel natural. When you repeat small sentences in real situations, your brain starts to predict them. And when your brain predicts language, it becomes faster. When it becomes faster, speaking becomes easier. And when speaking becomes easier, confidence begins to grow without force. You may begin to notice that you are thinking a little differently. Not perfectly, not all the time, but in small moments. You might find yourself silently saying a simple sentence while doing something. You might notice that certain words come to your mind more quickly than before. This is not an accident. This is the result of connecting your daily life with your learning. And this is something you are building step by step, without pressure, without stress, without waiting for the perfect time. Right now, even without changing anything in your life, you already have everything you need to begin this process. You have a morning routine. You have a way of moving through your day. You have repeated actions. You have objects you use again and again. All of these can become your training ground. And the beautiful part is that no one else needs to see it. No one else needs to approve it. This is your private space to grow, to experiment, to build confidence quietly.
Welcome, reality. Welcome to reality.
If you look at your day with new eyes, you can already see one routine that you know very well. Maybe it is your morning, maybe it is your evening, maybe it is your time in the kitchen, or your walk outside, or your moment before sleep. Inside that routine, there are already simple actions waiting to be connected with simple English. And once you begin doing that, even with just a few sentences, you are no longer standing still. You are moving forward in a way that feels natural and real.
Tools.
And this is where something exciting begins to open up. Because once your daily actions start connecting with English, something deeper becomes possible. If you can describe what you do, what happens when you begin to describe what you think? What happens when your inner voice slowly starts to use English too? That is the next step in this journey. And it takes everything you are building right now to make that step feel possible. Chapter 3. Speak to yourself in simple English. There is a quiet truth that many people do not say out loud, but almost every learner feels it deep inside. Speaking English can feel scary. Not because you cannot learn it, not because you are not capable, but because there is a fear of being wrong in front of someone else, a fear of making mistakes, a fear of being judged, a fear of not finding the right words at the right time. And because of that fear, many learners stay silent for a long time. They study, they watch, they listen. They understand more and more, but when it comes to speaking, something stops them. That pause is not a lack of knowledge, it is pressure. And what if that pressure could disappear completely, even for a few minutes each day? What if you could speak without fear, without judgment, without anyone watching, and still grow stronger every time you do it? This is where something very powerful enters your journey. You begin to speak, not to impress others, but to train yourself. Speaking to yourself may sound simple at first, almost too simple to take seriously. But inside that simplicity is a deep advantage. When you speak to yourself, you remove the biggest barrier that stops most learners. You remove the fear of being seen making mistakes. You create a space where nothing is wrong, where everything is practice, where every word is a step forward. This is not about long speeches or perfect sentences. It is about small, real, honest moments where you use English to express what is already happening in your life. When you look in the mirror in the morning, you can say something as simple as, I am getting ready. When you feel tired, you can quietly say, I feel tired. When you are searching for your keys, you might think, where are my keys? These are not big sentences, but they are alive. They belong to your moment, and that makes them meaningful. There is something beautiful that happens when language becomes part of your real thoughts, instead of something separate that you only use during study time. It begins to feel natural, even if it is still slow, even if it is still simple. You are not performing. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are simply allowing English to exist inside your normal thinking. And that is where true confidence begins. Not loud confidence, not perfect confidence, but quiet, steady confidence that builds from repetition. The kind that grows without you even noticing at first. Imagine a learner who once felt too shy to speak even one sentence out loud. They understood words, they could read a little, but speaking felt like standing on a stage without preparation. So they stayed silent. But one day, they began something very small. They started speaking to themselves while standing in front of a mirror. At first it felt strange, maybe even uncomfortable. But no one was there to judge. No one was there to correct them. It was just them and their reflection. They said simple things like, I am here, I am learning, I try again. The sentences were not perfect. Sometimes they stopped in the middle. Sometimes they forgot words. But something important happened. They did not quit. They continued. Day by day, those small moments began to feel easier. The voice became clearer. The hesitation became shorter. And slowly, without any big dramatic change, that learner became less afraid. Not because they suddenly became perfect, but because they became familiar with speaking. And familiarity removes fear. This is the power of self-talk. It is not about being alone, it is about building strength in a safe space before you step into a bigger one. When you say a sentence to yourself, even quietly, your brain is still practicing speaking. It is still forming words. It is still building connections. And most importantly, it is still learning that speaking is possible. Many people believe that speaking practice only counts when you talk to another person. But that belief creates pressure and delay. It makes learners wait for the right moment, the right partner, the right level of confidence. Self-talk removes all of that. It allows you to begin now, exactly as you are, with exactly what you know. You might notice that your day is full of small situations where your mind is already active. You are planning what to do next. You are reacting to something. You are thinking about how you feel. These are perfect moments for English to quietly enter. When you are cooking, you can say, I cook food. When you are late, you might think, I am late. When you are about to leave home, you can say, I go outside. When the weather changes, you can notice it is cold or it is hot today. These are not lessons. These are real thoughts, simply expressed in English. And the more you do this, the more natural it begins to feel. There is also a small but powerful shift that happens when you begin to describe not only what you are doing, but also what you feel and what you plan. You might say, I feel happy today, or I feel tired, or I feel nervous. You might think, I will go to the market, or I will study later, or I will rest. These sentences are very simple, but they connect English to your emotions and your future. That makes them stronger. Because language that connects to your feelings and your plans becomes part of your thinking, not just something you remember from a book. At first, it is completely okay if your sentences are short. In fact, it is better. Short sentences are easier to repeat, easier to remember, and easier to use again. You do not need to build something impressive. You need to build something real. And every time you use a simple sentence in a real moment, you are strengthening your ability. You are training your mind. You are proving to yourself that you can speak, even if it is quiet, even if it is simple, even if it is not perfect. There may be moments when you feel unsure, moments when you stop and think, is this correct? Am I saying it the right way? That is normal. But remember, this space is yours. This is your practice. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to grow. And growth does not come from waiting until everything is correct. It comes from using what you have again and again until it becomes stronger. Every imperfect sentence is still a step forward. Every small attempt is still progress. As you continue, something inside you begins to change. You start to feel less like someone who is preparing to speak, and more like someone who is already speaking. That identity matters. Because once you see yourself as a speaker, even in a quiet personal way, your relationship with English becomes different. It becomes active instead of passive. You are no longer only receiving language. You are creating it. And creation builds confidence in a way that no amount of passive learning can. There is a quiet strength in this method. It does not need attention. It does not need approval. It grows in small moments, in private spaces, in ordinary situations. But over time, those small moments build something real. They build familiarity. They build comfort. They build the feeling that English is not something far away. It is something you can use right here, right now, in your own life. And once you become comfortable speaking about what you do, something even more interesting begins to open. Your eyes start noticing more. Your awareness becomes sharper. Because if you can speak about your actions, you can also begin to speak about the world around you. What you see, what you hear, what you notice. This is where your English starts expanding beyond your inner voice into your environment. And that next step brings a new kind of clarity. A new kind of connection, and a new kind of confidence that continues to grow from the simple foundation you are already building. Chapter 4. Describe the world around you. There is something almost playful about what you are about to discover, and at the same time, something deeply powerful. The world around you is not just a place where you live your life. It is a place that can quietly train your English every single day. Not in a heavy way, not in a complicated way, but in a way that feels natural, light, and alive. You do not need to go somewhere special. You do not need to wait for the perfect lesson. All you need is your attention, because once you begin to notice what is already around you, something begins to open. The same room, the same street, the same kitchen, the same people suddenly become full of opportunities to use English in a real and meaningful way. You are already surrounded by objects, sounds, people, and small situations that your mind understands clearly in your own language. The only difference now is that you begin to gently connect those same moments with simple English. When you look at something, you can begin with the easiest patterns. This is a chair. This is my phone. I see a window. There is a table. These are not complicated sentences. They are not meant to be. They are clear, direct, and connected to what is real in front of you. And when language connects to something real, it becomes easier to remember, easier to use, and easier to trust. As you sit in your room, you might start noticing small details that you never paid attention to before. The color of your wall, the position of your bag, the sound of a fan, the light coming through the window. Suddenly, these are not just background details. They become part of your awareness. And with that awareness, English begins to attach itself to what you see. The wall is white. The bag is on the chair. The fan is fast. The room is quiet. These are simple thoughts, but they are active. You are not just remembering English, you are using it in real time, and that changes the way your brain works with the language. At first, it may feel like a small exercise, but slowly it becomes something more natural. You begin to see that describing the world around you is not something you have to force. It is something you can allow. You do not need to search for difficult words. You do not need to build long sentences. You simply describe what is there, what you see, what you hear, what you notice. And each time you do that, you are strengthening your ability to think and express in English without pressure. Then something interesting happens when you step outside your room. The environment changes, and suddenly there is even more to notice. The street, the people, the movement, the sounds, the weather. Everything becomes more alive. You might walk outside and notice, the street is busy. I see many people. The car is fast. The weather is hot. These are real observations. They are not created in a textbook. They are happening in your life. And because of that, they carry more meaning. They stay longer in your mind. They feel connected to you. This shift from inside to outside is important because it breaks a pattern many learners have. They think English belongs to quiet study places. But now you begin to see that English can move with you. It can walk with you. It can exist in noise, in movement, in real-life situations. And that makes your learning stronger. Because life is not quiet. Life is active. And your English is beginning to match that reality. You may begin to notice people more carefully too. Not in a complicated way, but in a simple descriptive way. He is tall. She is smiling. They are talking. The man is walking slowly. These are basic descriptions, but they are powerful because they train your brain to observe and express at the same time. You are not only seeing, you are also translating that seeing into language. And that is a skill that builds fluency step by step. There is a common mistake that many learners carry without realizing it. They believe that every sentence they say must be long, impressive, or perfect. And because of that belief, they stay silent. They wait. They hesitate. But in reality, communication does not begin with long sentences. It begins with clear ones, simple ones, honest ones. A sentence like, "The room is small," may seem basic, but it is a complete thought. It is correct. It is useful. And most importantly, it is something you can say again and again without fear. This is where confidence begins to grow quietly. Not from showing how much you know, but from using what you know without stopping. When you describe your environment in simple English, you are practicing vocabulary, sentence order, and thinking speed all at the same time. You are training multiple skills together, without even feeling like you are studying. That is why this method is so powerful. It does not separate learning from life. It brings them together. As you continue, you may find yourself describing things more easily than before. You may notice that certain patterns become natural. These structures start to feel familiar. And familiarity reduces hesitation. When hesitation reduces, speaking becomes smoother. And when speaking becomes smoother, your confidence begins to rise without force. There is also a quiet moment where you realize that you are no longer just memorizing words. You are observing your world in English. That is a different identity. You are becoming someone who notices, someone who connects, someone who uses language in real situations. And that identity shift is important, because once you see yourself as someone who can describe the world in English, you begin to trust your ability more. Even small moments can become meaningful. The sound of rain can become "it is raining." The heat of the sun can become "it is very hot." The noise of a crowd can become "it is loud." These are not just sentences. They are experiences expressed in English. And when language connects to experience, It becomes part of your life, not just part of your study. You may not feel perfect while doing this, and that is completely fine. You may forget words, you may pause, you may repeat, but none of that stops your progress, because every time you try, you are strengthening your connection between what you see and what you say. That connection is the foundation of fluency. It is built slowly, but it becomes strong over time. And now something deeper begins to appear. You are not just speaking. You are collecting real-life language. Words and sentences that come from your environment stay longer in your memory. They are easier to recall because they are connected to something you experienced. And this opens the door to the next step in your journey. Because once you start describing your world, you begin to build a vocabulary that is not random. It is personal. It belongs to your life. And that kind of vocabulary is the kind that stays, grows, and becomes part of your natural speaking. Chapter 5. Learn vocabulary from real moments. There is a quiet frustration that almost every English learner feels at some point. You sit down, you open a list, you try to memorize new words, and for a moment it feels like progress. You repeat them, you read them again, you maybe even write them down. But then a few days later, those words begin to fade. You see them again, and they feel unfamiliar. You try to remember, but nothing comes easily. And slowly, a question begins to grow inside you. Why does this keep happening? Why do I learn words and then forget them so quickly? It can make you feel like you are not improving, like your effort is not working, like something is wrong. But the truth is much simpler and much kinder than that. The problem is not your memory. The problem is how those words are entering your life. Words that come into your mind without connection often leave just as easily. But words that come from real moments, real actions, real feelings, and real situations stay longer. They attach themselves to something meaningful. And when something is meaningful, your brain holds on to it differently. It does not feel like random information. It feels like something useful, something alive, something that belongs to you. This is where vocabulary starts to change, from something you try to remember into something you naturally recognize. Think about a very simple moment in your day. You feel hungry. That feeling is real. It is not coming from a book. It is not an example sentence. It is your body telling you something. When you connect that moment with the word hungry, that word becomes stronger in your mind. It is not just a word anymore. It is an experience. The same happens when you step outside and feel the heat. Hot is no longer just vocabulary. It becomes something you feel on your skin. When you walk in the rain and think it is raining, that sentence is no longer abstract. It is connected to what you see, what you hear, what you feel. This is how language begins to live inside your life. Now imagine you go to the market. You see fruits, vegetables, people, movement, exchange, noise. You are not just walking through a place. You are surrounded by opportunities for vocabulary that is alive. Apple, banana, price bag, buy, sell, money. These words are not random. They are connected to what you are doing. You are holding them, seeing them, using them. And because of that, they stay with you more easily. The same happens in your kitchen. When you cook, you already understand every step. You cut, you wash, you mix, you heat, you taste. Now when you connect those actions with English, those words begin to stick. They are not floating in your mind without purpose. They are grounded in your daily life. This is the difference between what you can call quiet words and living words. Quiet words sit in a list. They wait for you to remember them. Living words move with you. They appear when you need them. They are easier to recall because they are connected to something real. When you begin to see this difference, something becomes very clear. It is not about how many words you know, it is about how many words you can use in your life. That is what makes progress feel real. There is a moment you can notice inside yourself if you pay attention. Think of one word you learned from a real situation. Maybe it was something simple like tired after a long day, or late when you were rushing, or heavy when you carried something. That word probably comes to your mind more easily. Now think of a word you tried to memorize from a list that you never used. It feels distant, hard to recall, maybe even completely gone. This is not a coincidence. This is your brain choosing what matters. It keeps what is useful. It lets go of what feels unnecessary. This realization can change the way you learn completely. You no longer need to chase large vocabulary lists, hoping that more words will make you better faster. Because more does not always mean better. In fact, too many words without connection can slow you down. They can create pressure. They can make learning feel heavy. But when you focus on words that come from your life, your learning becomes lighter. It becomes more natural. It becomes something you can continue without feeling tired. You may begin to notice that your day is full of these moments. When you clean your room, there are words. When you walk outside, there are words. When you feel something, there are words. When you talk to someone, even in your own language, there are ideas that can slowly connect to English. This does not require extra time. It only requires awareness. A small shift in how you see your daily life. And there is something very encouraging in this. It means forgetting less is possible. Not because you suddenly become perfect, but because the words you are learning have a reason to stay. They are not just information. They are part of your experience. When you say, "I am tired after a long day," that sentence carries weight. When you say, "I am hungry before eating," that word connects to a real need. This is how language becomes stronger. Not through pressure, but through connection. At this point, you may begin to feel a different kind of confidence. Not the loud kind, not the kind that shows off, but a quiet, steady confidence that says, "I can learn this in my own way. I can use what I already have. I do not need to rush. I do not need to collect everything. I can focus on what matters to me, what belongs to my life, what I will actually use." And that confidence is important because it keeps you moving forward without fear. There is also a small challenge hidden inside your day now, something that can feel almost like a game. As you move through your routine, you can begin to notice words that belong to your life and collect them. Not from a book, not from a list, but from your real experience. A word from your kitchen, a word from your street, a word from your feelings, a word from your actions. When you gather these words, they feel different. They feel personal, they feel yours. And that changes how you remember them. This is where your identity as a learner begins to shift again. You are no longer someone who is trying to learn more English. You are becoming someone who learns useful English. Someone who chooses words that matter. Someone who builds a vocabulary that is connected to real life. And that identity makes your progress stronger because it is focused and meaningful. As you continue on this path, something natural begins to happen. The words you collect from your life do not want to stay alone. They start connecting with each other. They begin forming small sentences. They begin creating simple expressions. And that leads you to the next step in your journey. Because once your vocabulary comes from real moments, the next question becomes clear in a very natural way. How do these words turn into sentences that you can use every day without thinking? And that is where your English begins to feel even more alive, even more connected, and even more like a part of you. Chapter 6. Build small sentences. Every day, there is a simple truth that changes everything once you truly understand it. Knowing words is not the same as using language. Words sit quietly in your mind, waiting. Sentences move. Sentences speak. Sentences express. And confidence does not come from how many words you recognize. It comes from how easily you can turn those words into something you can say, even if it is small, even if it is simple. This is where your journey begins to take a real step forward. Because now you are not only collecting pieces of English from your life, you are starting to build something with them. Think about all the words you have already gathered from your daily life. Words from your room, your kitchen, your street, your feelings, your routine. Those words are not empty. They are ready. They are waiting to become sentences. And the moment you start connecting them, something inside you begins to shift. English stops feeling like separate pieces and starts feeling like a flowing system. Not perfect, not fast, but real. And that reality is what builds your confidence step by step. You do not need complicated structures to begin this process. In fact, the strength of this stage is in its simplicity. Very small sentence patterns can carry a lot of meaning. When you say, "I am," you open the door to describing your state. I am tired. I am happy. I am ready. These are simple, but they are powerful because they come from your real feelings. When you say I have, you connect to what belongs to you. I have a phone, I have food, I have time. When you say I need, you express your situation. I need water, I need rest, I need help. These are not advanced sentences, but they are alive. They are useful, they belong to your life. And something very important happens when you start using these small structures again and again. They begin to feel natural. Your mind does not struggle as much to build them. You do not stop as often. You begin to move from thinking to speaking with less effort. This is what creates momentum. Not big jumps, but small continuous steps that build strength over time. You might notice that even one word from your daily life can grow into many sentences. Take something simple like tea. At first, it is just a word, but then it becomes, I drink tea. Then it becomes, I make tea. Then I like tea. Then I want tea. Then I am drinking tea. The word did not change, but your ability to use it expanded. This is how language grows. Not by adding more and more words, but by using the same words in different simple ways until they become flexible. The same happens with something like your phone. It starts as phone, then it becomes, I have a phone. Then I use my phone. Then I check my phone. Then my phone is in my hand. One word becomes many possibilities. And each sentence you create is a small success, a small proof that you can use English, not just understand it. These small successes matter more than you think, because each one builds your confidence quietly, without pressure. There is a moment where you may begin to test yourself without even realizing it. You might look at something in your life and wonder if you can say it in English. You might think about your breakfast and try to form a sentence. You might notice your phone and describe what you are doing with it. You might feel tired and express it in a simple way. These moments are not random. They are signs that your brain is beginning to work with English actively. You may not always get everything right, and that is completely fine. This is not about perfection. This is about movement. Every sentence you build, even if it is simple, even if it has small mistakes, is still progress. Because you are doing something that many learners avoid for too long. You are creating language, and creation is what builds real ability. There is a common belief that stops many people at this stage. They think they must wait until they understand advanced grammar before they start building their own sentences. They wait for the right time, the right knowledge, the right level. But that waiting creates distance. It slows progress. Because the truth is, you learn sentences by building them, not by waiting to be ready for them. You grow into better structure through use, not through delay. Small sentences are not weak. They are not something you should feel embarrassed about. They are the foundation of everything. Every fluent speaker started with small sentences. Every confident voice was once simple and slow. The difference is not in how big the sentences are. It is in how often they are used. Repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity builds speed. Speed builds confidence. And confidence allows you to grow naturally into more complex language later. As you continue building these small sentences from your daily life, something important begins to happen inside you. You stop feeling like someone who is trying to learn English from the outside. You start feeling like someone who is using English from the inside. That shift is powerful. Because when you use language, even in a simple way, you begin to trust yourself more. You begin to feel that English is something you can handle, something you can control, something you can grow with. There is also a quiet sense of progress that starts to appear. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. You begin to notice that sentences come to you a little faster. You hesitate a little less. You recognize patterns more easily. And these small improvements build on each other. They create a rhythm. And once that rhythm begins, it becomes easier to continue. At this stage, your learning is no longer about isolated pieces. It is becoming connected. Words connect to sentences. Sentences connect to actions. Actions connect to your daily life. And that connection is what makes your English stronger, more stable, more natural. You are not memorizing for the sake of remembering. You are building for the sake of using. And as this continues, something even more important starts to take shape. These small sentences, these simple moments, these repeated patterns begin to form a system, a quiet system that lives inside your day, a system that does not depend on motivation or perfect conditions, a system that grows because it is part of your routine. And that is where your journey is heading next. Because once your English becomes part of your daily system, it stops feeling like something you have to do and starts feeling like something that is simply there, growing with you every single day. Chapter 7. Make English a daily habit, not a special event. There is a quiet truth that changes everything once you begin to notice it. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel excited, ready, full of energy. You want to learn, you want to improve, you want to do more. But other days feel different. You feel tired, distracted, busy, or simply not in the mood. And when your learning depends only on motivation, your progress becomes unstable. It moves forward for a few days, then stops, then starts again, then slows down. This is not because you are weak. This is because motivation was never meant to carry you all the way. What carries you forward, slowly but steadily, is something much simpler and much stronger. A habit. A habit does not need energy every time. A habit does not wait for the perfect feeling. A habit lives inside your routine. It becomes part of your day in a quiet way. And that is exactly what your English needs now. Not to be something you visit once in a while. Not something you do only when you feel ready, but something that exists inside your daily life, moving with you, growing with you, without pressure. When you begin to see English as a daily habit instead of a special event, something shifts inside you. It stops feeling heavy. It stops feeling like a task you must prepare for. It becomes something lighter, something closer, something that fits naturally into your life. You do not need a long study session. You do not need a perfect environment. You do not need everything to be quiet and ideal. You only need small moments that already exist in your day. Think about how your day flows. You wake up, you eat, you walk, you check your phone, you move through different tasks, you rest, you prepare for sleep. These moments are already fixed. They happen again and again. And that repetition is exactly what makes them powerful. Because when you attach English to these moments, even in a very small way, it begins to repeat naturally with your life. You might wake up and spend just a short moment noticing your morning in English. You might eat and describe what you are having. You might walk and quietly observe what is around you. You might check your phone and think a simple sentence. You might lie down at night and reflect on your day in 1 or 2 words. These are not big actions. They are small, almost invisible. But they carry something important: consistency. There is a difference between doing something once with effort and doing something many times with ease. One feels heavy and difficult. The other feels light and natural. When you practice English for 1 hour once in a while, it may feel strong in that moment, but it does not always stay. But when you use English for 1 minute every day, it begins to grow roots. It becomes part of your thinking. It becomes part of your routine. And that is where real progress lives. Many learners believe that effective practice must be long, serious, and difficult. They think if it is not intense, it is not working. But this belief often creates pressure. It makes learning feel like something hard to maintain. And when something is hard to maintain, it breaks easily. But when something is simple and repeatable, it continues. And continuation is what builds fluency. You may begin to notice that you already have moments in your day that can hold this habit without any extra effort. A moment after you wake up, a moment while you eat, a moment while you walk, a moment before you sleep. These moments are already yours. You do not need to create them. You only need to use them in a slightly different way. And once you choose even one or two of these moments, something begins to settle inside you. A sense of structure, a sense of direction. There is also a quiet strength in choosing small commitments instead of big promises. When you say to yourself that you will use English for a short moment in your day, it feels possible. It feels real. It does not create fear. It creates action. And when you repeat that action daily, it becomes easier. Not because the language becomes perfect, but because the process becomes familiar. You may notice that after a few days, something starts to feel different. You no longer think about starting your English practice. You are already in it. It begins without effort, because it is connected to something you already do. And that is the beauty of habit. It removes the need to decide again and again. It simply continues. There is also a deeper shift happening here. You are no longer someone who is trying to learn English only in special moments. You are becoming someone who lives with English, someone who allows it to exist in small parts of the day, someone who does not wait for the perfect time, but uses the time that is already there. This identity is powerful because it changes how you see yourself. You are not behind, you are not struggling. You are building, step by step, in a way that lasts. Even if some days feel slower, even if some moments feel less clear, the habit still carries you. Because the goal is not to feel perfect every day. The goal is to stay connected to the process. And when you stay connected, improvement continues quietly in the background. There may be a moment when you look back and realize something has changed. You are using English more often. You are thinking in simple sentences more naturally. You are noticing things in English without trying too hard. This does not happen because of one big effort. It happens because of many small, consistent moments that build over time. This is where calm confidence begins to grow. Not the kind that needs to prove anything, but the kind that feels stable. The kind that comes from knowing you are doing something every day, even if it is small. The kind that does not disappear when motivation is low, because it is supported by your routine. And as this habit becomes part of your life, something even more interesting begins to happen. These small daily moments start to change not only your English, but how you feel about yourself as a learner. You begin to feel more capable, more consistent, more in control. You begin to trust the process. And when you trust the process, you continue. This is not the end of the journey. It is the point where everything you have built starts to come together. Because once English becomes part of your daily habit, it stops feeling like something separate. It becomes part of your identity, and that leads to something deeper, something more powerful, something that goes beyond simple practice. It begins to change how you see yourself, how you think, and how you move forward with confidence in ways you may not have imagined before. Chapter 8. Your daily life can change your English. There is something quietly powerful about looking at your life again with new eyes. The same life that once felt ordinary, repetitive, and maybe even disconnected from your English journey now begins to feel different. Not because your life changed, but because your understanding changed. The same room, the same routine, the same small daily actions are no longer just part of your day. They have become part of your growth. And when you begin to see that clearly, something inside you becomes lighter. You no longer feel like you are chasing English somewhere far away. You begin to feel that English is already walking beside you. Think about how things used to feel before. English may have seemed distant, something you had to prepare for, something that required special time, special focus, maybe even special energy that you did not always have. It may have felt like a subject, something separate from your real life. You studied it, but you did not always live it. And because of that, progress sometimes felt slow, sometimes unclear, sometimes frustrating. But now something has shifted. You have seen that your daily life is not separate from your learning. It is the place where learning happens. You notice English around you, You allow yourself to speak in small ways, even if it is just to yourself. You describe what you see, what you feel, what is happening in front of you. You learn words from moments that matter, not from lists that disappear. You build small sentences that grow stronger with repetition. And then you carry all of this into your daily routine, again and again, until it becomes natural. This is not a complicated system. It is simple, but it is powerful because it is real. Your day becomes your practice. Whether you are at home, sitting quietly, walking outside, working, studying, resting, or even just thinking, English can exist with you. It does not interrupt your life. It fits into it. It grows inside it. And that is where something beautiful begins to happen. English stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like presence. It is there, quietly, in small moments, building your confidence step by step. There is also a moment where you begin to realize something deeper. You do not need a perfect life to improve. You do not need a perfect schedule. You do not need perfect English. You only need one real moment and one simple sentence. That is enough to begin. That is enough to continue. Because every small moment carries the possibility of growth. And when you take that possibility again and again, it becomes progress. You may begin to see yourself differently now, not as someone who is trying to learn English someday, but as someone who is already using English today. Even if it is small, even if it is simple, it is real. And that reality builds a kind of confidence that cannot be forced. It grows naturally because it is supported by your daily life. You are not waiting anymore, you are already moving. There is a common belief that many people carry for a long time. They think fluency will come in the future. Maybe when life becomes easier. Maybe when they have more time. Maybe when they feel more ready. But that future often keeps moving further away. Because the truth is, fluency does not begin in some perfect moment later. It begins in the small, imperfect moments you choose to use today. It begins when you decide that what you have right now is enough to start. And when you look at your journey from that place, something changes. You stop comparing. You stop waiting. You stop doubting as much. You begin to trust the process you are building. Because it is yours. It is connected to your life. It fits your reality. And that makes it sustainable. There is also a quiet pride that begins to appear. Not the kind that needs to show anything to anyone, but the kind that you feel inside. You know you are doing something every day. You know you are growing. You know you are becoming stronger, even if the changes are small. And those small changes add up. They create something bigger over time. If you take a moment to reflect, you can see the difference clearly. Before, English felt far away, difficult, and separate from your life. It was something you tried to reach, something you sometimes avoided, something that felt heavy. But now, English begins to feel closer. It becomes part of your day, part of your thoughts, part of your actions. It becomes something you can touch, use, and grow with. That shift is not small. It is everything. There is a simple question that can stay with you as you move forward. What if your next breakthrough begins in the most ordinary moment today? Not in a special class, not in a perfect situation, but in a small moment that you already have. A moment when you notice something. A moment when you say something simple. A moment when you connect your life with your language. That is where change begins. Quietly, but powerfully. And from here, everything becomes clearer. You are not starting from zero. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are building something real, something that fits your life, something that grows with you every day. You are becoming someone who does not just learn English, but someone who lives with it. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a deeper one. Because once English becomes part of your daily life, the next step begins to open naturally. Your mind starts to move faster. Your thoughts begin to form more easily. And slowly, you start to think in English without translating, without stopping, without hesitation. That next level is waiting for you. Not far away, but just one step ahead, built on everything you have already started today. You don't need perfect English. You just need one small step today. Start now, use your life, and keep going. Your fluency is already growing. If this helped you, like, subscribe, and tell me your first sentence below. Your journey has already begun.